So a couple of things I want to share when it comes to budgeting. First, when you're looking at your budget, don't just put in your necessities, right? Like your housing, transportation, utilities, groceries. Put in the stuff where you're able to live life. Like, what do you like to do for fun? Whether it be golfing, skiing, traveling, going to the movies, going out to dinner. If you don't put that into your budget, then you're doomed for failure because you're not calculating the fun stuff. So be sure when you're working on your budget that you have line items that are contributing to your overall lifestyle. You don't just focus on like, I'll just have fun with what money's left over, because life be lifing sometimes. And so it'll become a time where you won't have any money left over. So budget for fun. Be sure you have that written in there. A lot of people like to call that discretionary expenditures. So this discretionary income just means income where you're able to do whatever you like with it. So be sure that you're budgeting that in there. Also, the book talks about emergency funds. I'm not a fan of emergency funds. One is, when you look at finances, an emergency is just meaning that you don't have any money left, right? And also, an emergency is subjective, right? Because what's an emergency to you could be is not an emergency to someone else. So to really eliminate what emergency funds are is to be properly budgeted, be properly financed enough to where you are prepared for a big car expense or a healthcare expense. Be sure you have the proper insurance, because that helps you a lot of times to avoid any type of emergency situations. I don't even believe in an emergency credit card. If you haven't budgeted to pay that credit card off in the first place, that credit card is never going to be paid off. And so when you think about discretionary funds, not only do you want to have funds left over for you to have fun with, but also have funds set aside that you can also be prepared for when life be lifing, right? And so what I like to do with my budget is I level up my zero. So for example, when I put in my budget, I don't dwindle everything down to where my budget is down to zero. If I earn, for example, $2,000 a month, I'm not budgeting all $2,000 of it. And maybe I'll budget maybe $1,500. And at the end of all my expenses, and my living expenses in my fund, there's $500 left over. And over time, that $500 will accumulate to $1,000, and $1,500, and $2,000. And then when an emergency situation comes up, guess what? I have the funds. I am prepared for that emergency situation, right? When we talk about that 70-10-10-10 plan, right, and you're paying yourself first, that 10% is going into an account to where you have at least 6 months of lifestyle expenses saved up. That can take you 3 to 4 years to save up. And how many types of emergency situations are going to happen within 3 to 4 years? There could be one at least every single year that we can think of, right? And so you don't want to take away from that 10% to where you're building up that account to where you have 6 months of household living expenses there. If you want to change jobs, you want to take a break or take a sabbatical, you have that set aside to prepare so you can really just enjoy life and not worry about it. Also, when you have that set aside, that account accumulating, money attracts money. You think differently when you have money, right? I remember when I was in school in college, and I was a broke college student, and when the vending machine we used to put money into the vending machine. You didn't tap your card back then. We used to put money into the vending machine, and then the chips would get stuck, and I had no money. Tears would literally be rolling down my eyes because that was my last quarter that I had. And then, and I couldn't think differently about where I can find additional funds or where I can find that next snack. But when you have money set aside, when you're living comfortably, your mind is a lot clearer. You can think things through a little bit better because you're not stressed. You're not financially strapped. You're not so narrowly minded. You're not living with the scarcity mentality. Now you have an abundance mentality. And so when you have that savings account that's building up towards having that 6 months of savings, and then even going beyond that, so you can start really investing once you have that 6 months set aside. And I'll talk about that towards the end of the semester about building your overall wealth strategy. Money's going to attract money, opportunities going to attract opportunities, and life is going to life a lot different for you. So those are the two things I want to share about when you're looking at your budget is one, be sure that you're budgeting for fun and entertainment. And secondly, budget for when life be lifing. So be sure you're doing that when you're working on your budget.